Hey guys, Mr. Jorgens here. Welcome back for part 2 of Linear Inequalities, section 2.1 in our book. I'm calling this one part 2, and it is all about graphing. All right, so we're graphing linear inequalities today. Stay tuned. There's going to be a few questions. Make sure you're ready to answer them. Let's consider the inequality x is greater than 2. Now, if we consider that inequality, inequalities are different than equations in that more than one number could work. Like if that was x equals 2, x would have to be exactly 2. But for this inequality, there's many numbers that if I plugged it in for x, it would be greater than 2. Select the options that you think work. All right, hopefully you realize that any of the big positives like 3, 4, 5, 6, 100, 1,000, all those numbers would be bigger than 2. And so we really want to be able to show that there's many answers to an inequality like this. And the way we show it is by graphing it. And we're going to graph all of these inequalities today on a number line. So I'm going to draw a number line. I'm going to center it at 0, count out 4 spaces in both directions. And the way I go about graphing these is I'm going to think about the numbers that work and the numbers that don't work. So in this case, numbers like 3 and 4 would work. All the negatives, like the small values, and 0 and 1 are also less than 2, so they don't work. Kind of the tougher one is going to be 2. In this case, 2 is not greater than 2, so it does not work. Then I have to consider where is the cutoff point. Like do numbers like 2.5, 2.6, 2.7, 2.1, do those numbers work? And if I think about it, anything that's greater than 2, so even if it's 2.0001, all of those numbers in there are all going to work, right? So pretty much anything to the right of 2 is going to work. Now the way I'm going to show that is the number 2 does not work. So since number 2 does not work, I'm going to put an open circle. If it did work, I would fill it in to show that that was a solution. And everything to the right side of 2 works. So I'm going to draw an arrow that way. And that graph is going to represent my solution set of the inequality x greater than 2. Let's try another one. We're going to consider the graph x is less than or equal to -3. Now, if I go ahead and look at that on my number line, I've got some key points down there. Now, the first thing, I'm looking for all the numbers that are less than or equal to -3. Pick some numbers that work. All right, hopefully you're realizing that on this one, any number that's big, so anything that's bigger than -3, so all the positives are bigger than -3 and 0, those don't work. So I'm going to put x's on all of those spots there to show they don't work. And -1 and -2 are not bigger than -3. Or sorry, they are bigger than -3. They're not less than -3. Obviously, numbers like -4, -5, -6, those will be less than -3. And since it's less than or equal to, this part underneath that says or equal to shows that -3 is going to work as well. So everything to the left of -3, including -3, is going to work here. So I'm going to put a closed circle to show that -3 works at -3. And then I'm going to draw my arrow to the left-hand side. So that graph there is going to represent my inequality x is less than or equal to -3. This one, let's try to do it in reverse. So I'm going to draw my number line here. I'm going to center it this time at 12. So that would mean 13 and 14 are coming to the right, and 11 and 10 are coming to the left, which means 0 is all the way over here somewhere, right? Off to the side. And my inequality is going to look like this. Select which of the options would be the inequality that would represent that graph. All right, hopefully you realize that since it's an open circle, that means it's not or equal to. And I'm comparing it to 12, right? Because 12 is kind of the number that shows up. And in this case, I want numbers that are bigger than 12, so x greater than 12. And since it's an open circle, it's going to be not or equal to. It'll just be greater than not or equal to. So x greater than 12 should have been the inequality that you selected on that one. All right, we're going to go ahead and try one more here. This one's going to be centered at negative 42, which means that the numbers that are a little bigger are going to be negative 41 and negative 40. And the numbers a little smaller are going to be negative 43 and negative 44. And the inequality we're going to be looking at on this one is a closed circle going to the left. So based on that graph, go ahead and select the inequality that you think would best represent that graph. So on this one, we were comparing x to negative 42. And I wanted the smaller ones, so less than negative 42. And that closed circle is going to mean that negative 42 works, so less than or equal to negative 42. So hopefully you selected x is less than or equal to negative 42. That kind of wraps up the stuff that we're working on section 2.1. So all of the content, there's only 2 parts for 2.1. You're good to go for the big ideas homework at this point.